Morning guys, we got Jeff's big Jeep, the big J truck in the shed this morning. We've had it in here for the week, sort of just working on it when we could, getting it all prepped. Just going to get some Raptor on it today, so make it look $1 million bucks. But yeah, so we've given it, basically gave it a good clean down, because it is a four-wheel drive. It was completely caked with mud and dirt and all that sort of stuff, so I gave it a really good clean. Particularly paying really close attention to the floor of the tray, which had some gear oil and stuff spilled on it, because this truck was and pretty much is a daily driver, so it gets used. So yeah, we had quite a bit of gear oil and stuff to clean off the tray. Got it all clean. Basically sanded it all down with an orbital down to about 120, and then there wasn't a lot of this was originally painted with a rattle can, so it wasn't a shiny gloss sort of paint, so we didn't have to be too particular with the scuffing of it, so to speak. But gave it a good go over with 120 right over, and wherever we couldn't get with the orbital, we obviously did by hand. Gave it all a good sand, blew it off, then got in there with a Scotch Brite, gave it all a good rub around, all paying close attention around the door apertures and around the bonnet sort of guards and stuff like that. We've got it all masked up now. We've given it all a prep sole or a prep wash right over to get it all clean, blown it off again, and then I've just gone around with the Raptor acid etch and just done any bare metal and sort of any areas that I was just a bit worried about where we couldn't sort of get too well, just to make sure it's got a bit of a coating in under there. Done the floor of the tray a little bit. I've got to do a little bit more to that, but yeah, another coat on there of the primer just to make sure it's all sealed. And then I'm just going to go around shortly with the adhesion promoter, and with that I'm just going to go around all the body lines and sort of just give it a quick spray any of the areas where we couldn't really get into sand properly, just to make sure we don't have any areas where the paint might want to flake or peel. Once we do that, we'll be painting her up. So it's going to be a bit of a two-tone theme, so it's a genuine Jeep colour. The colour code's PGK, which is Chrysler or Jeep tank green. So it's going to look pretty cool, the old girl. It'll just be, it used to be the camo pattern, but we're just going to clean it up a bit. Yeah, get it all just green, and the grille will be black, the little bezels around the lights, so it'll just set it off a little bit so it's not all too much one colour. But I'll set this camera up and I'll give you a bit of a look at unboxing and how we go with mixing the Raptor and that sort of thing. Righto, one thing I just want to show you before we get into the mixing and that sort of thing is my little compressor. Doesn't get a lot of maintenance, it's just turn it on and use it, turn it off again. But I just noticed it's been quite cool the last couple of mornings as well, which doesn't help. But I've just noticed I've unplugged the other lead I had plugged into it, and it was a lot of moisture in the line. So one thing that's not a bad idea is just to loosen the bottom off, let all the water out of the tank that builds up in there, and then fill her up with air. That way you're going to reduce a little bit of the contaminants going through the line. You can also obviously get you know, filters and all sorts of stuff you can put on there to try and cut that moisture back, but if you're doing it at home with a little DIY compressor, then yeah, that's all you're gonna have to do, just drain that air out a little bit. Righto, so we're just gonna go around, chuck a little bit of the adhesion promoter on. It doesn't need to be lots, but just like little areas where we couldn't get in perfectly to sand. So around these body lines, just a light coat, just to that's really going to help. I think that's pretty good. Go through and do all the areas that we couldn't get right into. Beautiful. Righto, so we've got the tunable Raptor liner out of the box. In a 4 litre kit, you obviously get 4 of these bottles, which makes a litre once it's sort of all mixed up. So yeah, we've got the 4 of them, we've got the bottle hardener, and then you just need your colour to mix in with it. So first thing, obviously you've given them all a good shake because they get settled in the box. So giving them all a good shake's not a bad idea. You can have a look at the colour, they're sort of just like an undercoat colour, and then whatever 2-pack paint you mix with it is the colour it'll take on. So you generally sort of fill up to the line with your hardener and then fill the rest up with your colour, or you can go through and chuck all your colour in and then put the hardener in the bottles just before you're ready to use them. One thing, I normally don't use the supplied little jug for pouring the hardener in. It does have the amount there filled to the line, 8 ounces or 237 mils, pretty specific. I usually don't use that because I found that it's really hard to pour with and it just ends up spilling everywhere, but I've noticed they have actually changed them. So that was the one I got in the last kit that I'd painted, and that's the one that they're using now. So I'll give it another go. Hopefully it'll pour a bit better, because you don't want to be wasting it. So we'll see how we go with that. This is our colour we're going to be putting with it. So we'll just give you a bit of a look at that. It's alright doing all this one-handed. It's a real dark green. Rightio, so we've mixed all the bottles up, chucked the colour in, sprayed and put with the Raptor. I've just got, how much you put in's up to you, but I've just got this little measuring cup with a line on it. Works out to be about 80 mils. And I just find that's a good amount. Some of the lighter colours, maybe you might want to put a little bit more, but 80 mils would be fine for everything that I've done. So what I've done is put the colour in the first 4 bottles, because we're going to start with 4 bottles and see how far that gets us and then evaluate from there. So I've put the colour in all 4, given them all a good shake just so the colour's mixed up properly, and then when you add your hardener and you're mixing it, you only need to worry about the hardener mixing through, not trying to mix the colour and the hardener. And yeah, so I'll put the other 3 bottles out in the sun because it's still a little bit cool here this morning, so I just want to make sure they're not too cold and a bit too thick consistency. But that's your colour, so I reckon if you wanted Army Tank green, that's what you've got. Anyways, so I'll get this camera set up on a time lapse, get all my protective gear on, and we'll paint this big girl. Yo. Righto guys, we've got the Jeep pretty well all done. We've just been putting it back together. I've had a pretty big day on it today, but just had to get out of the house. It was 3 o'clock and I hadn't had a beer yet on a Saturday, so I had to do something about that. But I'll give you a bit of a look. So we just painted the green, got it all done, let it dry. chuck some static cling mask roll around and just to give us that neat line, and then came back over with the black. Did the tray floor black. Come up pretty good. So get the badges back on, give them a polish, shining. The light bezel's all polished up. Everything's just had a good clean. Yeah, got the grill all painted, bull bars all painted. Looks pretty well all back together. Just, about to paint the mirrors now. Get them back on. And the only other thing I had to do at this stage is put the tail lights and all the back end back in. A couple of filler necks on the fuel tank. But yeah, just sort of got into it while we were going, but I'll chuck a couple of pictures and that I took of the process of getting this done. But yeah, love the green. Undecided whether we'll do something a bit more two-tone with it yet. I'll wait till Jeff comes in and has a look at it and lets me know what he wants to do, but we could leave it as is. It actually is a really nice green. It looks pretty good, but just to mix it up a bit, we might just do the flare black. We might sort of fill this body line in here and have black in through here and a black flare. We could run the black right through and around the front spoiler. Not sure, that'll be Jeff's call, but looking cool. Righto, quick little walk around. We'll probably give you a better look at it later, but for now, she's looking pretty. Work all done. The badge is all polished up. All original badges on it. Original clear covers on the lights. Bezels on these all polished up. Nice looking colour. Very cool on an old Jeep. Especially to go with a army tank green, which is an actual Jeep colour. So keeping with the heritage of the car rather than just picking any random old green. Jeff likes to do that, stick with a colour that was actually once on the car or an option for the car. Yeah, we masked up and painted a few little things that just once the rest of the car looked nice and pretty, they were letting it down a little bit. Ended up painting the mirror covers black, polished up the windscreen wipers. Floor of the trays come up really good. We just masked around it, around the world. Just chose to paint the door handles, but masked up a little button, masked up the keyhole. Tried to stick with the army theme. Looking really cool. Let us know what you think.